Ever get that feeling, where it's like you're totally killing on the outside, career's going great, social life's busy, but then inside, it's like there's this empty space.
Well, that's kind of what we're going to be diving into today, this whole idea of high-functioning depression.
Oh,
We've got this amazing interview with Dr. Judith Joseph. She's a psychologist who's really changing how we think about depression, especially like these days.
yeah, it's really interesting stuff.
One of the big things is experts are saying depression isn't always showing up in those like classic ways we're used to, you know? So we're going to look at how things like, being constantly connected online, the whole pandemic thing, even inflammation in the body,
Yeah,
it's all kind of tied together in ways you wouldn't expect.
it really is a fascinating connection.
So yeah, in this deep dive, we're hoping to, first off, help you spot those sneaky signs of high-functioning depression, maybe in yourself, maybe in someone you care about.
It can be so hard to spot sometimes.
Totally. But the big thing is we want to give you some tools to not just cope, but like actually heal.
I love that. So Dr. Joseph, she has this really interesting way of describing people who deal with this high functioning depression thing. She says they're often like the picture of success, right? They're rocking it at work, keeping up with all the demands of life. They're the reliable ones everyone leans on.
And so many people like that.
Right. But beneath the surface, there's this constant lack of joy. It's kind of like an emotional flatness. And they might not even realize it's depression because it doesn't fit that image we usually have in our heads.
Absolutely. And this ties right into, the idea of anhedonia, which is a core symptom of depression, especially this high-functioning kind. Basically, anhedonia is when it gets harder and harder to feel pleasure.
That's a tough one.
It is. It's like things that used to make you happy, hobbies, hanging out with friends. It just doesn't have the same spark anymore.
Yeah, it's like Dr. Joseph gives this example of a typical day, right?
Yeah.
Someone with this, they're up early, driven by anxiety, rushing through their schedule, checking off all these tasks.
But not actually present.
Exactly. Busy all the time, but emotionally just going through the motions. I mean, does any of this sound familiar?
And that's the sneaky part of anhedonia. It's like stealing your joy, slowly fading the color out of life. And because these folks are still high achievers, they often just brush those feelings off as stress or being too busy, which of course just keeps the cycle going.
Yeah, and let's face it, in our world, everyone's pushing for more, right? Hustle, hustle, hustle. We're almost trained to ignore our feelings, to get ahead, get
Yeah.
more work done, more achievements, more stuff. But are we missing out on something more important in the process?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it makes separating anxiety and depression that much harder. They often come together, the lines get blurry. That restless energy we think of with anxiety, always on the move, mind racing, that can actually be a sign of depression too.
That's so interesting. And then Dr. Joseph, she goes even deeper. She says depression itself is changing. And a lot of it has to do with modern life. Think about it. The internet, social media, the news is on 24/7, always something negative or traumatic happening. It's a lot to take in.
It is. It's like we're constantly swimming in this sea of stress, and it's taking its toll.
If you look at the big picture, it's this mix of things, right? Biology, psychology, social stuff. It all feeds into depression. Genetics, maybe past trauma, societal pressure, even inflammation from things like a virus.
It's complex.
It is.
Yeah.
Dr. Joseph is really big on a holistic approach, to understand and treat this the right way.
And she's very clear on this. If you're struggling with high-functioning depression, never ever think you're a burden for asking for help.
So important.
It is. Reach out, talk to someone, connect with loved ones, because you are definitely not alone. There's help out there.
What I always try to emphasize is how important it is to validate those feelings, your own experiences. This is especially true for people who were taught to bottle things up, the whole mental health is weakness thing.
Yeah, that's old school thinking.
It really is. Your feelings are valid, what you're going through is real, and asking for help is strong, not weak. I love that. Dr. Joseph also talks about psychological homelessness, and man, this one hit home for me. It's that feeling of being lost, ungrounded, disconnected from yourself, from your purpose, even if from the outside, everything looks great.
That's such a powerful way to describe it.
Isn't it? And she has these 6 questions. They can really help figure out if this is something you're dealing with. So think about if any of these resonate with you, all right?
Okay, lay 'em on me.
First, does your life, like internally or externally, feel like it falls short of what you imagined?
Okay.
Second, did you achieve what you thought you wanted, but you still feel empty?
Interesting.
Third, do you ever feel kind of powerless or hopeless?
Okay, got it.
Fourth, Do you just lack energy for things that used to matter to you?
Keep going.
Fifth, does it feel like there are no words to describe this ache you feel in your heart?
Hmm.
And last, do you find yourself crying a lot? Or maybe the opposite, like you can't cry.
Those are powerful questions.
They are. And if any of those hit a nerve, you're not alone. And it might be a sign that it's time to really prioritize self-care and
Yeah.
community care. And if that voice pops up saying self-care is selfish, I'd say, what if it's actually the most selfless thing you can do?
There you go. Taking care of yourself so you can take care of others.
Right.
Dr. Joseph, she's all about those simple, practical self-care strategies, healthy food, good sleep, moving your body, and then adding in mindful stuff like breathing exercises, yoga, or even just meditation.
That's so key.
It is. It's not just trendy stuff. It really helps calm down your nervous system, boosts your mood.
This makes me think of that story Mel Robbins told about the woman who survived a sexual assault. But she didn't look like a survivor because she was high functioning. It's a reminder that sometimes all that excellence, that busyness, it can be a way to hide those unhealed wounds.
Yeah. So true. The things we go through, the messages we get from our culture, it can all shape how we see ourselves, whether we think we deserve love and support. If you're always striving, always pushing to achieve, maybe ask yourself, what am I trying to prove? And who am I trying to prove it to?
That's deep. And speaking of pressure, Dr. Shafali Sabri, she talks about this modern parenting crisis. She says technology is creating a gap between parents and kids. And our obsession with achievements is stealing away their joy, that simple joy of just being a kid.
Yeah, she's a big advocate for parenting with presence, right? Put down the phone, really tune into your child, offer connection instead of distractions. Just be present, make space for those real moments, the silliness, the joy.
Makes you think about all the pressure parents face these days. This whole parenting industrial complex, Dr. Shafali calls it. We're constantly told our kids have to be in every activity, get straight A's, be on this fast track, but to what end?
Right, what are we rushing toward?
It creates this fear that if we don't push them, they'll fall behind. But what if, by pushing, we're pushing them away from what really matters? Connection, well-being, inner peace.
Big questions.
They are. And Mel Robbins, she gets really honest about her own struggles with anxiety and what her family's been through with mental health. What I took away from her story is the importance of talking openly and self-awareness. It's okay to not be okay. Creating that safe space in your family where you can be vulnerable, that's huge.
I couldn't agree more. It all comes back to asking both yourself and the people you care about two simple questions. How do you feel? And what do you need?
I love that. 2 questions.
Yeah, those questions open the door to real connection, a place where you can express what you need, be vulnerable.
And to close out this part of our deep dive, I have to share Mel Robbins' story about her husband, Chris, and how he dealt with depression. Chris's experience with the high five, that simple thing of acknowledging and celebrating himself. It's a powerful example of how we can shift from judging ourselves to actually accepting and supporting ourselves.
I love that story. Yeah, it's like such a good reminder. Even these small little acts of self-compassion, they can make a huge difference.
Totally. And it makes me think, this isn't just about healing ourselves. It's about changing how our whole culture thinks about mental health, right? We need to normalize these conversations, make it okay to not be okay.
Absolutely. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. That's what I always say.
Preach and challenge those old school beliefs that struggling means you're weak.
Yeah, that's just not true. What strikes me is this, how often we actually mix up peace with boredom. If we're always looking for stimulation, always got to be on, maybe it means we're not comfortable with just being still and quiet with ourselves.
Oh, that's so true. It's like we're avoiding our own thoughts and feelings by keeping ourselves distracted all the time.
Exactly. And that ties back to psychological homelessness, right? If we're not at home within ourselves, if we haven't found that inner peace and connection, we'll always be looking for something outside to fill that void.
It's like a constant search, right?
Yeah.
Never satisfied.
Right. Think about it. How often are you on your phone? How much time scrolling through social media, reading news, or just zoning out with whatever? It might feel good for a minute, but it's not solving the real stuff that's making you feel disconnected.
It's a Band-Aid, not a cure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about ditching your phone. It's about being mindful of what you're putting into your mind.
Yeah.
What are you feeding your soul? Are you doing things that bring you real joy, things that nourish your spirit, things that help you feel connected?
I love that, feeding your soul. So what can people do? What kind of things help us feel more connected, I guess, to ourselves and the world around us?
Self-care isn't just bubble baths and face masks, right? It's about making choices that match your values, things that support your well-being, that help you be the best version of yourself. It's putting mental, emotional, and physical health first, even when it feels inconvenient or maybe even a little indulgent.
Indulgent, I like that. Because sometimes self-care also means setting boundaries, right? It means saying no to things that drain you or go against what you believe in or keep you stuck in that cycle of busy, busy, busy.
Boundaries are key. They protect your energy, your well-being. It creates space for the stuff that matters, helps build those relationships that nourish you, lets you do more things you love.
It's about protecting your peace. And it's not just about setting boundaries with other people, right? It's also about setting boundaries with yourself.
That's huge. Recognizing your own limits, respecting your own needs, allowing yourself to rest, to recharge, putting your well-being front and center.
It's like giving yourself permission to take a break.
And that's where self-compassion comes in, right?
Uh,
We can be so hard on ourselves, setting these crazy high standards. But what if we treated ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we give to others?
More self-love.
Exactly. We can break free from that self-criticism and create a more supportive space within ourselves.
You know, this makes me think about what Dr. Joseph said about processing trauma, how it doesn't always have to be these big, dramatic events. Sometimes it's the smaller things, these subtle experiences that build up over time and leave you feeling hurt, insecure, disconnected.
It's so important to acknowledge those experiences, to let yourself feel those feelings, and make space for healing. Trauma can keep you stuck in the past, reliving those painful memories, afraid to move forward.
It's like a loop you can't get out of.
And that's where therapy can be so helpful, or support groups, any kind of healing work. Having a safe space to process what you've been through, to get a different perspective, to learn how to cope, it can really help you break free from those patterns and take back your power.
So powerful. And you know, healing doesn't always go in a straight line. It can be messy, unpredictable. There will be setbacks.
It's a journey, not a destination, right?
But if you approach it with patience, with self-compassion, with a willingness to lean into those uncomfortable moments, you can come out stronger, more resilient, more connected to yourself and the world.
Absolutely. Which brings us to the importance of connection, right?
Mm.
Humans are social creatures. We need that sense of belonging, of community.
Mm-hmm.
When we isolate ourselves, try to do everything on our own, we're missing out on one of the most powerful ways to fight depression and anxiety.
It's like trying to fight a battle alone when you could have an army by your side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Meaningful connections give you that feeling of belonging, support, purpose. They let you share the tough stuff, celebrate the good stuff, and go through life's ups and downs, knowing you're not alone.
So it's not just about how many people you know, but how deep those connections are, right?
Quality over quantity, for sure. It's about having those real, genuine connections with people who truly see you, hear you, and accept you for you.
Yeah.
People who challenge you to grow, support you when you're struggling, and cheer you on when you succeed.
Those ride or die friends.
Exactly. And sometimes the most important connection you can have is with yourself. Learning to listen to your gut, honoring your needs, building that self-love. That's the foundation for every other healthy relationship.
It all starts with you. And Dr. Joseph talks a lot about validating ourselves, recognizing our worth, acknowledging our feelings, giving ourselves permission to just be.
So important, especially for people who are used to seeking validation from outside, basing their worth on achievements or how they look or what other people think.
Like we're looking for approval in all the wrong places.
Right. But if you can learn to validate yourself from within, you don't need to rely on those outside opinions. You become confident in your own worth.
You know, it all goes back to what Dr. Joseph jokingly calls high-functioning A. It's that driven, overachieving part of so many people who struggle with this kind of depression. It's like always striving, always pushing, but never really present for the journey itself.
We get so focused on the destination that we miss the beauty of the present moment. And then when you reach that goal, that milestone,
Yeah.
you often feel empty because you haven't learned how to find joy and satisfaction in the process.
That's so true. So how do we change that? How do we go from always striving to a way of being that's more balanced, more fulfilling? How do we break free from that high-functioning A grip and embrace a more authentic, connected version of ourselves?
It starts with awareness, right? Recognizing the patterns, the beliefs, the behaviors that keep you stuck in that cycle of overachievement and disconnection. It's about questioning those messages that say you're not enough unless you're constantly doing, achieving, pushing for more.
It's about recognizing those limiting beliefs.
And it's about doing things that ground you in the here and now. Mindfulness, meditation, spending time in nature, doing things that spark joy. All those things help you reconnect with yourself, tap into your inner wisdom, and find peace and contentment that doesn't come from checking things off a list.
It's about finding those things that light you up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't forget about setting boundaries, prioritizing self-care, and asking for help when you need it. Remember, asking for help is strong. It means you're aware of what you need.
It's about having your own back.
And maybe most importantly, it's about embracing imperfection. Letting go of that need to be perfect, to have it all figured out, to constantly prove yourself. When you accept yourself, flaws and all, you make space for authenticity, vulnerability, and real connection.
That's the good stuff right there.
Yeah, flaws and all, right? It's about realizing our worth doesn't come from outside stuff. It's already there. We're worthy just because we are.
So true. And you know, this whole conversation, it makes me think about Dr. Shefali and what she calls conscious parenting.
Yeah, what is that all about?
It's like raising kids who are emotionally smart, self-aware, in tune with themselves.
I love that.
And it's about creating this family vibe where everyone's okay with being vulnerable, feelings matter, and connection is more important than achievements.
That sounds amazing.
Right. Imagine if all kids grew up feeling safe to explore their passions, be themselves, and they valued well-being just as much as success.
What a different world that would be.
It really would. And it all starts with us, right? Each of us choosing to challenge how things are, taking care of our own mental health, and creating a world that's more supportive, more compassionate.
So true. We have the power to break free from all those old beliefs, change the way we talk about mental health, and create a world where everyone feels seen, heard, supported.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's go back to Dr. Joseph's 6 questions for psychological homelessness. Take some time. Think about how they fit into your life.
Those were good ones.
They were. What steps can you take, to feel more at peace, more connected,
Yeah.
to boost your well-being?
Yeah, what can people start doing today?
Exactly. And here's a final thought for you to ponder. If we often get peace and boredom mixed up, what does that tell us about how we see ourselves?
Ooh, that's a good one to sit with.
Right. How can we learn to be more calm, more content on the inside, even when life gets chaotic?
That's the goal, isn't it?
It is. And remember, asking for help, that takes strength, not weakness. You deserve love, support, and you deserve to heal. You have the power to create a life that's full of joy, purpose, real connection.
It's all within reach.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time.